And away we go. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Big Freakin' Friday show on the College Football Mafia Network. I'm your host, Nathan Bomber Brown, and with me are Wild Ute and Moen. How are you doing tonight?
What's up?
I'm here.
Yay. That's 99% of the battle. So just having you here is really, really good. It's great to see both of you. So it was lively week in college football. We're going to go through a few news and notes. We'll preview, I believe it's week 12 in the college football season this weekend. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the Florida State brand valuation conversation that Michael Alford ran at the board meeting. And then just a couple other things. I was going to bring up a Matt Baker article. Dennis Dodd. I have a Matt Baker one too, but the Dennis Dodd article about the Super League, ACC, Big 12, private equity. So we're going to jump into that. Realignment is back. I think it all started because we have loose lips sink ships. Everybody's dissatisfied in the ACC, so they have no trouble leaking some of these special meetings. The more we hear about it, the less powerful I think it is, but that's just me. Anyway, welcome to the show. We really appreciate everybody being here on Friday night. We know there's a lot of stuff going on in your lives on a Friday, so we very much appreciate you being here. Make sure you follow all of us on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you leave us a comment or a question and give us a thumbs up. Let us know how we're doing. How do they become members of the College Football Mafia family there, Moen?
You asked me excellent question. Become a member of the College Football Mafia family. Go down in the chat window, click that little cash button right there. You can become a member. You can gift a membership. You can leave us a super chat. You can leave us a super sticker. All that good stuff to help us keep the lights on and the trains running on time here on the College Football Mafia Family Network.
There we go. Thank you very much. And if you do happen to receive a gift, you can gift memberships. But if you happen to receive a gift, consider paying that forward and giving somebody else a gift and keep this train on the tracks. All right, Moen, I'm going to let you go first. It's been the second week of the CFP. We had, some other realignment and stuff, other rumors come up. The Florida State thing. What stood out to you in news and notes this week in college football?
There is a schism between the Big 10, SEC, and ACC Big 12. ACC Big 12 are all about private equity and Super League. Big 10 and SEC are about none of that.
Okay. You don't want to clarify any more of it?
I mean, look, it's why would the SEC and Big 10 take part in a Super League concept?
Money.
I think money would be the argument, but
that'd be the money for the top brands. They would surrender their autonomy. Some of the lesser brands would receive less money. It's in the self-interest of the Big 10 and the SEC. They've already got a Super League. Schedule their agreement, get a scheduling agreement going, get the playoff expanded with more automatic qualifiers for the Big 10 and SEC, and go from there. Listen, there's a reason the Big 10 and SEC aren't participating in Super League.
Yeah. I mean, things change quick. And things will change because the pressures will mount here in the financial pressures of this new world we're living in, this house suit. We've talked about it before. At the end of the day, you're going to get your market value. I don't care if you're an employee or school or whatever. If you're getting hosed and somebody's milking you, you're going to get your money. And right now, there's plenty of schools that aren't getting money. And that's just how this works in this economy and in our system here in the United States. This is not, you don't share resources and everything. It's really all about each school. And that's exactly why, at the end of the day, Super League will happen. Maybe not in an iteration like we're thinking of, but Florida State and Michael Alford gave us some big, big hints on what a Super League could look like based on what the media folks that would fund this would want: eyeballs. And so it's not something you can just throw off and everything. I get that Big Ten folks don't like talking about Super League, but it's a reality. There's private equity wanting to come in, and you need to consider it.
What was the number floated?
Right.
$13 billion for the whole shooting match on Project Rudy, I think. That's a lot of money.
It's a
Even
lot of
if
money.
that was an estimate, I believe it was over 10 years. That's a lot of money for the conferences to share. Moen, were you going to say something else
Yeah,
before?
I was going to say proposition will be soundly denied. We don't want Super League. We can have a scheduling agreement with the SEC. I'm sorry, guys. Everybody has to look out for their own self interest. You're right about that. As conferences, the SEC and Big need to look out for themselves. That includes all their institutions. And they need to lock down more playoff spots. They need to get more automatic qualifiers. They need to get more money from their media partners, which they can do with a scheduling agreement.
Okay. We'll get into that a little more detailed. We've got a couple different stories that are on parallel tracks there. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Any words of wisdom about this previous week? Holy War's done. You don't have to worry about it for an entire year. But the hits just keep on coming to Utah. I mean, now we hear Isaac Wilson's not going to play by choice, is what it looks like.
He's got mono.
Yeah, right. That's what he said.
He's been kissing too many girls and can't.
I think he just didn't want to play, and he's going to transfer. Anyway, what are your end of week comments today?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a bunch of suck here in Ute land. I can't wait for things to turn around, and it feels like that momentum switching. If a bunch of players want to transfer out, so be it. We're on a losing team right now. We'll get new transfer players in, and we'll rebuild this thing for next year. It doesn't matter. Like, the season's over. So if Wilson wants to say goodbye because he has mono or doesn't have mono, wants to go somewhere else, go for it. If you don't want to be a part of the team, and get out.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a fairly straightforward plan. In my opinion, Kyle needs to be gone. The cancer starts with him and his old attitudes and how he's sort of stuck in his ways, as it were. But we'll see. But you guys needed to get a new strength and conditioning team. BYU's had bad injury years. The last 2 years for Utah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's do some shout outs. We'll start off with that early, and then we'll come back and we will definitely get into some of these news items we were just talking about. It's going to be a lively debate today. I would tell everybody to expect 90 minutes, maybe 100 minutes for the show tonight. So if you want to participate and make sure your comment is read, make it a super chat. Otherwise, take your chances with the lottery, and we'll pick the ones that we think we should do, and we can't really control at that point. All right. First in the house, Joaquin Morales, Arizona State. Who do they play this week, Ute? Do you know?
Kansas State.
Kansas State. Ooh, okay. Kansas State's a good team. They've been a little softer than people expected. But, hey, College Football Mafia family, don't forget to smash that like button. Absolutely smash it. It's free. Busy taking care of mama. We'll listen in as best I can. Go Devils. Prayers to your family. Joaquin, as always. Thank you for being here. Arizona State, K-State. That's going to be a good game.
It's in our picks.
Okay. Well, we'll go through that in just a second. Timothy Green also followed that up by saying, good evening, college football fans. Let's get ready for some fun. I hope you have fun. That's what we're here for. Make sure you get into this. Give us your biofeedback, and we will try to respond to that as much as possible. Clay Johansson says, go blue. Michigan. Who do they play?
I believe they're on bye this week.
Okay. All right. Earl Carr, good to see you, Earl. A post-Holy War week was good for BYU, but we turn the corner, and there's Kansas. And, yeah, they are bottom of the Big 12 right now, but the last 3 games they've turned their season around. So even it's a night game, which is Vampire Cougars, and it's in Lavelle Edwards Stadium here in Provo. So hopefully all those signs point to north. We'll have to see. I have to see. I'm not taking them for granted. I'll tell you that. Ryan Willie, Earl Carr's a member. Ryan Willie's a member. We appreciate you guys' loyalty. Thank you for being here, guys. Hi, College Football Mafia. Hi, Ryan. Good to have you here. I didn't miss any other members. Okay. Let's see here. I'm just scrolling down. We're going to try to get through as many of these as possible. Antoine Codes, another valuable member and an ASU guy. A scheduling agreement prevents the Super League from happening. It also makes money or takes money out of the pockets of the top brands of college football. ESPN and Fox, no. Comments?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your comment, Antoine. Good to see you. Daniel Gygax, one of the contributing editors to the College Football Mafia Network. Thank you for all that you do, Daniel, and being on our show, on the Big 12 Mafia shows. We really appreciate it. It says, hi, everyone. Hi to you too. Illini Ted says, squeezing in to say hello, College Football Mafia family. Thank you. Illini Ted, and thank you so much for your membership. We really appreciate your loyalty. We keep going. Clint Moses, Oregon State, not having the season they thought they were going to have. In fact, Oregon State went into this offseason kind of acting like Utah did. They looked at their schedule and they thought they were going to run that schedule.
What's the record?
I don't know. It's not undefeated, I'll tell you that. I want to say they have 3 losses already. But check me. I could be wrong. It can only be 2. Regardless, it hasn't been what they wanted. So Oregon State obviously isn't a tough get, especially rebuilding the Pac-12 with Washington State. But, yeah, that's boy. Being proactive and positive is one thing. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Super League. There you go, Mo.
That Super League stuff just won't go away, will it?
No. No.
It's that itch you can't get rid of.
It really, really won't go away. Daniel Gygax again, without the Big or SEC a part of the meetings, nothing will happen. Now Notre Dame might have to bend the knee. Mo, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Do you?
I do. I actually do see that happening.
Okay.
Notre Dame is not going to put their cards with the ACC. That's why they want Super League. They're desperate.
That's true.
It protects them. It makes sure they're one of the most valuable brands without giving up anything to do it. So,
yeah, you're right.
But if the Big Ten and SEC come to some sort of agreement, Notre Dame's going to have to take a look in the mirror and decide what they want.
Oof. Okay. Did you get their schedule?
They're 4 and 5.
Yeah. So Oregon State not running the offseason. Utah did not run the Big 12. In fact, the old Pac-12 hasn't done so well this year.
Outside of Colorado and Arizona State.
Yeah. Is that a toughness issue?
Not at all. I mean, look at Colorado and Arizona State. They sucked in the Pac-12 and they turned it around. It's just timing. And like in recruiting opportunities, I mean, Big 12, going back to Big 12 for Colorado has been a benefit. For Utah, it's been rough. It hasn't been good, like recruiting-wise and everything. Right. So some programs are benefiting, some are not.
Washington, USC, UCLA, they're cashing checks. That's about all they can say for this season. Anyway, David Frame, why would the SEC want to water their football conference down with Big Ten bad football teams? Why not just add Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan to the SEC and leave the bad teams behind, Moen? Why don't they just do that?
Well, one, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan don't want to do that. They want to stay in their own conference and have their own autonomy. This isn't a conference merger, guys. This would just be a scheduling agreement, playing 16 games per season out of conference against each other. 8 for the Big Ten media partners, 8 for the SEC media partners. Probably going to be top brands on top brands. So means more marquee matchups for us.
Okay. You want to add anything to that?
I mean, at the end of the day, you can't have a Super League if you've got a bunch of milkers in it. That just doesn't exist. You can make a Super League with the superpowers, the super teams, but you do not have a Super League in the Big Ten, and you do not have one in the SEC until you re-pivot and make something else. It's just the SEC and the Big Ten. You can call it what you want, but it's no Super League, guys. It's not. It's not the NFL. Bring the best brands, put the Premier League in place, and make it a Super League. And that's exactly what we're going to bring up later. I want to show you some analysis here.
Okay, excellent. Black Rain, good to see you, Black Rain. The playoff is a joke, definitely. It's not a playoff technically, it's an invitational. We need to quit calling it a playoff. Strictly speaking, people don't get in on merit. They're going to get on things like eye test and who is the last voice in the ear of the person who's voted to complain that their conference or school was not promoted. Until you get rid of the polls and until you get rid of the subjectivity out of it, it's going to always be like that. There's only so much you can perfect. The BCS was probably the closest thing, but I don't know if they want to go back to that. So anyway, Jeff Morgan, good to see you, Jeff. West Virginia in the house.
Hey.
What's up, guys? Good to see you, Jeff. Let's see here. Conundrum checking in, saying the Big Ten SEC is the Super League. Get over it. I don't know how you can have a Super League when, if you look at the roster, how many teams are running the Big Ten?
Yeah. Not
5?
No, it's not a Super League. It's like it's
Yeah, it's not.
Listen, the Justice
like
League has Aquaman. Aquaman. He talks to fish. What kind of superpower is that? You got to have wins. You got to have losses in your conference.
Yeah, and you'll have wins and losses if you make a Premier League. But like this is no Super League. It's just a conference of a couple of heavyweights and a bunch of milkers. Like it is what it is. That's what it is.
And the SEC
Several
too.
heavyweights.
Several
heavyweights.
Several. You've got 3 heavyweights.
Yeah.
Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State.
You've got Oregon, USC, Penn State, Michigan,
Washington is
Ohio
flashes,
State,
but
Washington,
this
Nebraska,
year, Indiana.
Indiana.
This year has been the oddity. So we'll see what next year's like. Anyway, thank you very much for your comment, Conundrum. Joe Z, good to see you. Make certain that like button is smothered, covered, and chucked, folks. Okay. He said, "Oh, sorry, typo, chunked." So make sure.
Never been to the Waffle House before?
Chunked. No.
That's something you get done with your home press.
Okay. All right. Joe Z said, "Got a new phone and it's kicking my ass." That's funny.
Hang in there. Hang in there.
Yeah, hang in there. It gets better. It gets better. Let's see. Tony Lawson, I did. Tempest, getting down to the super chat. Tempest, another member in the house. Thank you so much, Tempest. I want to give you a clap out. We really appreciate you being a member and being somebody we can count on when we do these shows. FSU thought the same thing, Bomber. I'm not sure which one we're talking about. Which part is he talking about?
Maybe like the whole Oregon State viewpoint.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, boy, 3 examples. Oregon State, Utah, and FSU. Certainly in FSU's case. There's no doubt about it. Certainly in Utah's case, there's no doubt about it. Technically, OSU doesn't have a league, but they thought they would dominate their schedule. So, yeah, anyway. Thank you, Tempest, for being here. We appreciate it. Darth Ducky. Also, the BYU hate is ridiculous. BYU has better wins than Texas and Indiana. Well, you're shaking your head, Moen. It is a fact.
Well, I'm shaking my head at that duck. I hate that damn duck.
Okay. All right.
Okay. No, BYU does have better wins than Texas and Indiana, but you can only play who's put in front of you.
That's true.
If you have a scheduling agreement with another strong conference, you can get one more out of conference game. That would be easy to judge someone on, and maybe play 9 conference games like every other conference,
right?
And get rid of FCS opponents.
Boy, but I thought you didn't want that to happen because you wanted those FCS schools to have a chance to come in and get a payday.
Those are FBS schools that we do at Ohio State.
That's FBS. Thank you.
I'm talking about SEC schedule.
Right.
Mercer.
Very fair. Okay.
The next to last week of the season, or Holy Cross of St. Joseph.
Right. Mary Magdalene of the down lineman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for being here, Darth Ducky. Good to see you. BYU hate is ridiculous. Look, it's since Lavelle took over and BYU football became relevant to the nation. 50 plus years. I don't think that relevant thing and becoming where you're perennial every year is going to take time. 1 year by itself is not going to reset those paradigms. So everybody knows. I mean, I want BYU to get as much respect as possible, but if they would have been if they'd started in the top 25 and they are where they are now, they might be fourth or third, not in the playoff seeding. I'm talking fourth or third, but they didn't start high enough in the poll. They didn't start in the poll at all. So Earl Card, $2 super chat. Thanks, Earl. Wild feel for you guys. Utah has been snake bit.
It's been so rough this year. It's been so bad. There's been really nothing positive at all.
Yeah.
For the whole year, outside of beating Oklahoma State in a top 15 matchup, and it's just been a cluster from then on. It's just really has. It's been about the least fun season ever to be a part of and stuff. Can't wait till next year. Because I'm not a basketball fan, guys. I got college football. That's what I watch. That's what I care about. So it's basically a long off season next year.
Well, at least we have realignment.
Oh gosh, thank goodness.
Yeah, no joke. Conundrum again. Buffs and Sun Devils didn't turn it around. They just went to an easier conference. Yeah, that's funny. Okay. Tell that to Arizona, who was picked top 3, and Utah, who was picked top 2. That doesn't play, Conundrum. That thread does not end up in a shirt. Chris Jernigan, guys, injuries are the reason for Oregon State and Utah. Okay, well, everybody gets injuries. Nobody's injury free in college football. But it's a fair point. I just don't think you can't blame your season on injuries. That's what Utah did last season, and it poisoned a lot of their thought process. Just go out and own the loss and say we need to do better in the offseason. If you blame everything on injuries and getting rooked by referees, it gives you an out. The next offseason, you might say, maybe I don't have to work so hard because we only lost because of injuries. We only lost because of referees. It's not healthy. And I think that's what you're seeing at Utah this year. Last year, they got out, and everybody said if they would have had Cam Rising and a couple other players, Brent Keithy was out because of injury. And that's what happened this year is they blamed the whole season on a couple of players based on injury. It's not healthy.
I mean, if Cam Rising plays all year, it's a different story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just bad luck too.
Yeah. He hasn't played a full season for 3 years. Yeah. Becky, go Huskies! Also a contributing editor and member, and everything we appreciate. Becky says, can't wait to see Ole Miss at Washington. I would love that game. That would be fantastic. I would love that. Jackson Dart up there, that'd be fantastic. $10 super chat comes in from the wings, just like that. There we go. Mark Bowman, $10 super chat. He's also a member, guys. So he's paying us a couple times, and we really appreciate it. I think
let him cook. Let him cook, Moan. Let that man cook.
Yeah, go for it.
I gotta find it.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Excellent. $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Mark. I think the Wazoo head coach Dickert would be an attractive option for a school looking for a change. Any idea how big his buyout would be? We could Google that and look it up, but I don't know what it is. But he is a good coach. I think if not this season, next season he'll get another job. In my opinion,
another job. Yeah, he's a fantastic coach. I don't know his compensation, like in the Pac-12, like the compensation levels for the schools, the low end was about $1 million to $1.5 million for a head coach.
Okay.
So I'm thinking Washington State's probably in like the $1.5 million, maybe even the $2 million range for Dickert. That's just a complete guess educated guess based on being in conference. So the buyout, maybe something in that range and everything for him. Now that Washington State's on the Pac-12 anymore, like the old version of the Pac-12, it might be a little lower. So, yeah, it's a good coach to go get, 100%.
Thank you so much for the super chat, Mark. We really, really appreciate it on a Friday night. We're starting to get cold. We're feeling winter now, people. And now it's 5 months of hell for me. I hate it. Stormy Cyclone checking in, saying, hello, everyone. What was the ratings on the Holy War game? I believe it was 2.1 million.
That's right.
For a 10:30 p.m. I believe it's the third best of the year. And the other two were Colorado.
Yep.
So go ahead, you. Sorry.
Exactly. Just nailed it. 2.17. And Colorado was in first place and second place for that time slot. Like, hey, you're averaging about 1.2 to 1.6 views in the 8:30 Mountain Time spot on ESPN. So anything above 1.6 million is actually really good. So 2.17 is a great number for that game. Colorado is going to outperform every time, guys. Yeah. Colorado is an elite ratings driver, 100%.
Very, very good. Moen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, those are overnight ratings. We've got to wait until I believe next week to get the actual rate, because there's math involved with how they do it.
Right.
Front Office Sports, I think, usually has.
That's true. They do.
But it takes 2 weeks to get them.
Okay.
I don't know why.
This is what I will say as an introduction. The Holy War National. I don't think you could have done much better.
I think you could have if you moved it up.
I'm talking about in that time slot. I'm talking about in that time slot. I don't think they could.
But I mean, listen, dude, it was 2 a.m. when that show was.
I know.
And I watched all of it.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Moen, thank you for your view. We really needed it.
Yeah, I'm counting that as a favor, Moen. Thank you.
I was walking through my sleep on Sunday because of that game.
Keep chopping in the house. The Holy War only did 2 million views. Again.
Yeah. Relative to the slots.
Yeah, 2/3 viewers are east of the Mississippi. And those people were in bed at the start of the game.
Yeah, it's just too late of a game window for the East Coast stuff.
Yeah. But now they kind of know, they see how much attention it ginned up. And next year's going to be the exact same way. Whether it's a flag or a turnover or something, next year's going to be identical. So it's just everybody buckle up. You and I have been talking about it for almost 2 years. I hope everybody appreciated it, because for us, it was something else. I'm not going to say you'd enjoyed it, but it certainly had everybody's attention. To Town Hawk, KU Demon Hawks are crawling out of their grave and are on the prowl in Utah this weekend. Well, okay. We're looking forward to seeing your demons. It'll be fun to watch vampires and demons on Lavelle Edwards Stadium, beautiful grass. So anyway, all I know is I want a good game. I would love a game to just almost be a shootout, because it'll be very entertaining. Very entertaining. There was something I was gonna. Oh, I just lost it. There was something I was going to mark, and then it went right by. I'll find it. Doesn't matter. Clint Moses says Oregon State lost our coach, lost our star running back. Ton of injuries. Was bullish on schedule. Get off high horse, BYU, man. I'm not on a high horse. I'm in a low chair. And look, every university goes through these changes, Clint. If that's how you guys want to build your program, by making excuses, I guess that's up to you. I can't believe that's what you want, though. I find that hard to believe. I would think you'd want the challenge. Anyway, let's see here. No. Seen those? Rock Chalk 94 checking in. Hey guys, KU versus BYU. Rock. It'll be a great show. Thank you. Hit that again, Juan.
Oh gosh, I love that sounder.
Rock Chalk is a member, and we're very glad to have him here. Thank you so much. Bob Swanger is also a member. The Big 12 schedules FCS schools too. I didn't say they didn't. That really wasn't what we were talking about when that came up. Moen was trying to explain why the scheduling agreement with the SEC, how that could work to make more money. That's what we weren't really talking about, whether you should play FCS or not. least I wasn't.
I was accusing the SEC of complaining when they
Oh.
schedule FCS schools.
Okay.
And they don't even schedule them in the early part of the season.
No, they're at the end of the season.
Yeah, Alabama will schedule one right before the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, wasn't Mercer last week for Alabama, or is it this week?
It's this week.
Okay.
Alabama played LSU last week, but
it's like a third bye week, essentially.
Yeah, it's basically a third bye week. You can rest your first and your second string starters. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. Vox Condaro, good to see you, Vox. I've enjoyed interacting with you on Twitter. How do, fellers? I think we're doing okay. I'm personally a little down with the cold, but we're getting by. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Keep chopping. Now this is a Rutgers fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Holy War was 9th in ratings. That's solid. There you go. You getting compliments from the Big Ten.
Look at that. Hey, absolutely. I mean, I was impressed by the game. I predicted 1.6, 1.7 million viewers. It ended up almost 2.2. That's fantastic. About 25, 30% more than anticipated in that spot. So future growth, Utah and BYU, hopefully they're both good next year to get a primetime window. And maybe that can get a 2.5 to close to a 3 million rating, which is in the Big 12, guys, it's not going to draw Big 10 ratings. Only Colorado really gets 3 million plus in the Big 12. If you look at all season long, nobody else is getting that type of rating. Yeah. So if you're exceeding 2 million, especially 2.5, that's an excellent rating for a Big 12 team.
All right, very good. We want to get through a few more comments, then we're going to jump into some of these things. What do you after I'm done with comments here, which is just another minute or so, do you guys want to do? Let's preview week 9, then week 12, then we'll jump right into.
Alford.
Alford. We'll go there. Okay. Terry Kane giving us a smiley face. Good to see you, Terry. Thanks for being here. Let's see here. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else I missed that had been here early. Joaquin Morales says ASU was so injury decimated last year. Dilly had to bring in the swinging gate back. Nobody cared. They just wanted a W against ASU. Mm-hmm. Is that how you would describe it, you?
I mean, it's really injuries come and go. You can't predict them. They suck when they happen. They happen to every team. Hey, Utah's on their 5th string quarterback.
Yep.
That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, a lot of good players. A lot of
5th string quarterback
transferred out. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, they had good players in the first 4 positions. They're all hurt or unable to go. So sometimes it's just snake bitten too.
Skaven, yes, another valuable member of the Mafia family, saying, Moen, you're getting slow in your old age. I think that's slow.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
Struggling. All right, let me see. Rock and Rant popped his head in the door. I am sure it was just an oversight, but interesting how the Florida State athletic director didn't update his 2024 viewership numbers. Yeah, what about that, Ute? They were 2023 and before.
Are you sure that he didn't update the 2024 numbers?
I have no idea.
Florida State actually put up pretty good numbers early in the season. So it's all relative when they stopped. It's either at some point in 24. Yeah, I mean, Rock, if you've got backing on that and everything. I mean, it's a moot point either way. Florida State's got good ratings this year.
The only good numbers Florida State has put up, because they have not put up any numbers offensively.
Yeah.
Okay. Stormy Cyclone, again, a valuable member, says BYU and Utah hopefully will continue the uniform colors. That was fantastic. From what I understand, it's BYU's Royal at home with white pants. So I'm not sure what Kansas is wearing. If somebody could do an update on that. By the way, I'm going to say this right now. Everybody knows the Tyson fight is at the top of the hour. Just do us a solid and don't talk about it. I'd like to watch it after the show. All right. Two more
do
comments.
Do me a solid and don't watch it. It's an absolute joke to the sport of boxing.
Boxing's a joke nowadays.
It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Make boxing great again.
Okay, very good. I'm not sure that's possible. And then last but not least, Shonsky checking in, another valuable member, somebody that's become a friend of the show very much. ASU lost momentum with the self-inflicted bowl ban they put on themselves after, what's that guy's name?
Herm Edwards.
Herm Edwards ran that program into the ground. So, yeah, I don't know. All right, we're going to stop there. Okay, we're doing picks first. So let's do this. I want to thank everybody for being here.
We got to do standings first.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Week 11 results. Bomber went 2-6. Ute went 3-5. I went 1-7. Pickles went 4-4. Becky went 4-4. Rock continues his winning ways. Overall leader 52-36. I'm at the bottom with 37-51. Damn spreads killed me. Killed you too, Bomber.
I know. That's what I picked winners. They just weren't by enough points.
Yeah.
That was my problem. Last week I was 7-1. This week I was 1-7. Put me right back at 50%. There's only 3 weeks left. I don't know that, and there's enough running room to catch Rock at this point. It was about this time last season where I had like a 5-game lead, and it never got closer than the 3. So I think we're not going to give the award right this second, but I think we're going to end up giving it to Rock for winning this thing. All right. Thanks, Moen. Appreciate you doing that. We're going to run through these picks quick because I did want to get to some Q&A. Clemson at Pitt. What is that? 10.5. Pitt, Clemson, Pitt. I'm going to say I picked Pitt just against the spread.
Exactly. Just against the spread. Not to win the game. 10.5 with that hook of a half. Too much.
Moen, tell us why it's going to be a beatdown.
I think Pitt has been one of the most overrated teams this season. Even when they were undefeated, I don't think they ever got below 18 in the AP polls.
No.
They should have lost. There were 3 games in there they should have lost. The other teams let them back into it. But
right.
Clemson's just a better team than Pitt. Are they 11 points better? Probably not. It'll probably be Clemson by 10.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Rock picked Pitt as well. So I'm not going to gain one on that one at all. Utah, Colorado's minus 9.5. That has to be painful. Minus 9.5. Colorado and Utah playing in Boulder. You picked Utah, 9.5 points. Do you think that's going to be enough? Don't you need like 2 touchdowns?
I mean, Colorado now, based on the most recent spreads, about 11 is creeping up to 11.5.
Right.
This was a couple days ago when we issued this. Utah is in trouble in this game because Isaac Wilson has mono. So we're starting 5th string quarterback. Luke Batari, who's a walk-on, it's going to be a steamroll for Colorado. Colorado's going to beat and win this game. Bigger than 9.5, bigger than 11.5. It's going to be big.
Way to defend your pick.
You know what? Like if Isaac Wilson was playing in this game, I thought Utah could have a chance at an upset. I really did. I was feeling that, but with Batari, there's no chance. I'll be honest with you.
I have a feeling Isaac's going to have a nagging hamstring injury that just keeps him out of the next 3 games. Yeah. That's going to be my guess.
Prolonged mono.
Right, prolonged mono. There's nothing else to say there. Colorado right now is a better team, and if they're going to start showing off for voters, now's the time to do it. Tennessee and at Georgia. Now Tennessee's quarterback is out, and Georgia's 9.5. I picked Georgia to cover. I'm not feeling really strong about that one though, just because I think Georgia's overrated this year. They're not as good as they normally have been the last 5 years. So let's see here. You took Tennessee straight up.
Just the points. I just wanted the points. Georgia, I feel the same way about them. They've been kind of a disappointment for what we expect from Georgia.
Yep.
So Tennessee's played a little bit better than thought. I just see Tennessee keeping it within a touchdown.
Okay. Moen, you want to say anything about that one?
It's in Athens. Tennessee doesn't have their starting quarterback.
Yeah, their quarterback's out.
Carson Beck has been a disaster this year for
I agree with that too.
Bulldog, but I think they get by. They'll win by at least 10.
Okay. All right. Very good. Missouri, South Carolina. I'm on the South Carolina bandwagon. They looked really good a couple weeks ago. They're minus 12.5. I think South Carolina is going to cover, and I think Missouri is in a tailspin a little bit. They are not playing as well as they were at the beginning of the season. So that's how I justify my pick. Obviously, me and Moen were the only people that took the Gamecocks. Moen, you want to add anything about South Carolina?
Yeah, listen, Brady Cook, the starting Missouri quarterback, is out again. Missouri
Jeez.
is just like Pitt. They were just so overrated at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
And I admit I had them overrated at the beginning of the season. I thought they were going to be really good this year. Struggled against Boston College, struggled against Vanderbilt. South Carolina has blown the doors off of some really good teams.
Yes.
If that team shows up, they're going to blow the doors off.
Ute.
Too many points. I'm taking the points this week, guys. Taking
Okay.
the points. 12 and a half is a lot
that.
of points, even if I don't doubt that South Carolina wins this football game.
Right.
The 12 and a half tough.
All right, next one. Arizona State at Kansas State. So Kansas State's 8.5 point. Going to give those to Arizona State. Can Arizona State score enough points by basically being a one-trick pony? Because you take Scalaboo out of the game, what do they got?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. I took the points. This is a point pick for me. I think Kansas State is going to do anything they can to get into that CCG. So that's why I picked them. I think they're hungrier. Sorry, I picked the reverse. I meant Arizona State's hungrier. My fault.
Yeah, they have the same amount of losses.
They do.
Yeah, surprising. So Arizona State's sneaky good, sneaky physical, and I think this game's going to look a lot like K-State KU a couple weeks ago. I think Arizona State's going to be able to run the ball. Okay. I do see K-State winning the game close. It's a home game, probably 3 points, 4 points, but it's going to be close. Arizona State's it's going to be a heck of a game to watch. And Scalaboo's going to get his. He's so hard to stop. Yeah. You have to tackle him 5 times to get the guy down. So I love the physicality of Arizona State. I think they'll play well, but just not quite enough quality there yet to beat a team like K-State.
Moen.
I like K-State. I think if they can shut down the run, they can shut down Arizona State. I think Avery Johnson has a big game. I like K-State in the points. I think they probably win by 2 touchdowns here.
I think these two teams are almost identical. Not in the way they run their offenses, and their defenses there's some similarities in their defenses. They disguise coverages, that type of thing. But they're both 7-2. And I think they're very, very similar. So whoever wins this game is going to have the leg up. Like I said, Arizona State has everything to play for because they play BYU next week. So we'll have to see.
Wow.
Oregon at Wisconsin. Wisconsin 14.5. Again, Wisconsin's getting 14.5. Oregon is giving up 14.5. I picked Wisconsin to cover. That's what I meant to say.
I picked Wisconsin to cover. If it's 14, it's push, right? 14.5 is just too many. Give me Wisconsin home game at Camp Randall to keep it within 2 touchdowns.
I said this on Monday's Big Ten Mafia show, Monday here on the College Football Mafia Network, 8 p.m. Myself, Becky, and Pickles. I think Wisconsin might be able to pull the upset here. This is at Camp Randall. It is a night game.
Outright.
Oregon.
And outright.
Oregon has had some tough games this year. They've blown out a lot of people. I agree. Yeah. I just think Wisconsin might be due for one. I predicted the Texas Tech win a couple weeks ago as a sneaky upset. This is my potential sneaky upset. Wisconsin over Oregon.
Ooh, Moan.
I already said I think Wisconsin just covers. I didn't pick them to win like Moen did. Thanks, Moen, for the breakdown, though. I appreciate that. Okay, Kansas. BYU's, again, Vegas has lost all but 2 games this season with BYU against the spread. They're 7-2. And even in the close games, they were this much from covering. So I think BYU is getting only 2.5 points is a joke. I think Kansas should have been given about 5 or 6. And at that point, I might have thought and mitigated my choice, but in my opinion, BYU at home at night, the Vampires, all of it. They have something to prove, and Aaron Roderick is not coaching against his arch enemies in Utah, and I think they actually have a chance. If he plays north-south again, BYU could blow him out. So
Kansas has the offense to attack BYU with the dual threat, really good dual threat running game and everything. So I think offensively it's a great matchup, and Jay Hill's a great coordinator. But like, hey, KU has really – they have the type of offense that can score points. And look, the Holy War is just so dang emotional. Like, it's hard to get up again after a game like this. This is the problem with being in an A4 level conference. You play a Holy War towards the end of the year, not the last game. And all of a sudden, like, you're just buzzing off that for multiple days. KU's hungry. They're hot right now. Good matchup. I think KU wins this game outright.
Moen.
I think you nailed it perfectly. Big win last week for BYU. They're up emotionally. Kansas has been building momentum all season. They were slow out of the chute, but they have – I mean, last week they dominated Iowa State.
Yeah.
And we thought Iowa State had a really good defense.
Yeah.
And they were up on them 31 points, I think, at halftime. So if Kansas can repeat that same performance on offense, get up a couple scores on BYU, I think BYU is going to have a tough slog of it. I like Kansas in the upset as well.
So remember about 3 weeks ago, everybody said Iowa State's defense is better than BYU's defense. Now you jump ahead 3 weeks. They've lost 2 games. And I think what you saw there is they hadn't really played anybody to challenge them. So I think they did look good against Iowa State, but I think Iowa State isn't as good as everybody thought they were because that first of the season start. So I have nothing but respect for Kansas. I think absolutely they could win the game. I just think this is the classic. Everybody thinks they're going to have a pause or a letdown. And Kalani's got something going with the character and some of the other stuff he's using for motivation. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope this is a game that BYU plays well in.
I do see BYU going to the championship game regardless of winning or losing this game. I really do. It's just like it's just the emotional part.
Sure,
it's
sure.
So
I get
emotional and like coming down and like, hey, like, I mean, Utah Batari's coming in. Like when you're thinking rationally about that, it might get really ugly, you know.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. I mean, that would be a huge win for the Cougars to turn it around and get this one too.
Which is why I think we explained the 2.5 points. Yep. Vegas is thinking the same thing. So we'll see, though. If you have time to stay up late, it's another night game. Every other team in the conference, I think, complains about the night games. Not BYU. They're 26-3 past 8 p.m. Eastern time. 26-3 in the last 5 or 6 years. So, yeah.
Well, I just one more point on that, Bomber.
Sure. Okay. Last game, I have nothing to say about this one. Both these teams, I thought they were coming back similar to the 80s. Well, actually, USC was down in the 80s, but certainly Nebraska, 80s and 90s, they were up. USC's -8.5. I had to pick one of these teams, so I picked USC, but I have no feelings one way or the other about this. Do either of you have anything you want to say?
No, let's just take the points and cross your fingers.
Listen, I do have something to say. Becky on the Big Ten Mafia brought this up. The one thing that Lincoln Riley's top quarterbacks have had in common is that they're running quarterbacks.
Right.
Miller Moss has been sat. He was a pro-style quarterback. They're bringing in the transfer Maivia.
Okay.
I think he has a big game. I think Lincoln Riley, despite what everybody says, he can whisper to quarterback somehow. And I think that quarterback has a big game. Dylan Raiola is a good quarterback, but Dana Holgerson taking over as offensive coordinator mid-season. He was there a week before he became offensive coordinator, I think.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's not enough time for a true freshman quarterback to make all the connections needed. And it's at USC, so I like USC.
I'm going to say this: Nebraska next year with Dylan Raiola, second year in the program, I think they could be real good.
Assuming he stays.
Yeah, assuming he stays. All right, that's it. Do you want to say anything about Nebraska or USC?
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red. I love it. All right, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Those are great picks. I hope you guys enjoyed sort of figuring out where we're going wrong and been part of that. We really appreciate you being here. We're not going to let any grass grow underneath our feet. We're going to go next to this story that Ute wants to get to, which is this Florida State AD. Let me bring up this article. Give me 1 second. And you can sort of walk everybody through this.
Okay, so Michael
tell them
Alford.
what we're. Hang on, let me bring it up so everybody can see it. Let me do this. Okay.
You guys, this is so big, and like I can't believe so many folks aren't talking about this. Like, we talk a lot about realignment on this channel and everything, and we do our own analysis on top brands and everything based on viewership data. And there's always speculation, hey, do it this way, do it that way. It's kind of a black box and everything. Well, Florida State just gave us basically their own valuations internally based on their own modeling of brand value for all the ACC, all the Big Ten schools, and all the SEC schools. Like that, to me, that as a data guy, as a finance guy, I freaking love that. Like, holy smokes. Like, based on Florida State's big board, these are the most valuable brands out. It's not including all the Big 12 schools at all. Like, it is just one that's actually factored into on the next slide here. But when we're talking about a super league, and I understand not everybody thinks a super league. Some of you think that the SEC and the Big Ten is the only super league, and like you don't want to hear anything about it. I totally understand, especially if you're in the SEC and the Big Ten. But if you take a step back and look, if there was ever going to be a super league formed of the biggest brands, the most prestige brands and everything, the biggest ratings, it basically is served up right here based on the FSU analysis. I can do my own analysis. You've seen that before. I've talked about it before. But this is basically AD Michael Alford's just giving it to us. Like, these are the biggest brands viewership-wise in football. We don't need to debate it. This is how Florida State sees it. And so to me, that's kind of shocking to see that he'd reveal something like this at a booster meeting that we can all take a look at. And where he thinks Florida State measures up too is quite freaking amazing to me. Look at right here, viewership strength index. So what Florida State's done here is basically done some regression modeling to determine really how Florida State's performing viewership-wise compared to all the rest of the teams in the A4, in the power conferences. And you can see here, based on what their data says, they're the 7th best viewership driver out of everybody in the nation. And so they're trying to make the argument, obviously, and he's trying to rally up the boosters saying, hey, we're number 7 in the nation. We ought to be able to get into a super league. We ought to be able to get in the SEC or the Big Ten. Like, this should be a huge driver for change in getting in there and making more money and not being in the SEC. So really, when we're looking about the super league, this is a massive hint. That's the namesake of this whole episode. This is a huge hint on how Florida State sees the playing field, on what a super league could look like, a premier super league could look like. And I think that's noteworthy. They're a very well-known brand, and their AD has given us this information, and we need to at least take a look at it. And I get you might not agree with the super league concept, but at least taking a look at the data is relevant for discussion and to see where everyone's stack ranks up. And so that's laying the field a little bit and why this matters so much.
Yeah, let's set the table a little bit so everybody knows even what Mike Alford's doing here. He went before a board of trustees meeting, or it was a different presentation. Do you remember? Here, let's read the original tweet. Yes, Matt Baker's now just he works for The Athletic, I think. Florida State AD Michael Alford. Let me just do this. Let me get to this so I don't forget. Here's the comment. You guys can look at it yourself. Anyway, Florida State AD Mike Alford in a booster town hall. That's what it was. shares these slides about the Knowles brand value viewership ratings. He says he loves to look at TV numbers by market after big games. We own the state of Florida. And obviously, the things he's talking about here is we have Florida right over here on the left, and we have here's the Big Ten. So third in the Big Ten viewership numbers and fourth in the SEC. And we already know they were tops in the ACC. So isn't he preaching to the choir here, or is this a bit of he's trying to put out fires because their team is so bad?
Well, yeah, their team is so bad, so this is the discussion, right? Like you take the positivity that you can, but this does matter. And like when we're talking about Florida State possibly getting into one of the Power 2 leagues or a future iteration of Super League, it's because of what you're seeing here. Like, let's be honest, Florida State has a huge brand. We knew that before, but they're saying Florida State has the third biggest driver in TV ratings in the Big Ten over USC, over Penn State. That's pretty remarkable, at least based on their analysis. Of course, it could be biased. We don't know what the black box
we don't know what the
everything.
Background is. Yeah.
Sure. But like still, the fact that he's willing to show these slides in a booster town, all to fundraise on NIL and tell people we need to get out of the ACC because look at what we could be in the Big Ten. Basically, the third biggest viewership driver behind Ohio State and Michigan. That's pretty relevant. Like that is exactly where the Florida State mindset is right now. And like again, like for a stacked ranking for the teams all put in here and everything, he basically lays it out 1 to 54. And I can show you that. I put together a little bit of a graph here.
Go ahead. Let me get this off here. Hang on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You can do yours.
Check it out. So just kind of digging into this and everything. And like, I'm hoping you guys can see this. Okay. Check it out. So is this too small? Let me zoom in a lot.
No, we'll do this. That's good too. But let's just there you go.
So the scores here are like the Alford black box scores and how Florida State rates the TV viewership for each one of these schools. And I compiled this today. I put it together because I'm just interested in, I'm a nerd, whatever, it is what it is, but it's relevant too. And so really looking here for Ohio State's the biggest ratings driver in the nation with a 161 score based on Florida State's modeling. And if you're looking at all the teams that were included in all their modeling, it's basically Ohio State's including that accounts for about 3.1% of all the viewership. That's what that's saying. So you can see here, like just going down the list here. So Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame's number 3 as far as viewership score, according to Florida State Alford. Then you got Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, and then like you can go down the list here. And it gets pretty comprehensive when you're factoring in the scores for all the different conferences. The only Big 12 school that's included here, because the Big 12 slide wasn't included, was Oklahoma State. And they're actually 20th in the nation in ratings driver, according to Florida State, which is pretty remarkable, right on par here with Iowa and above Washington and Miami. But what really gets interesting to me about this is like, okay, so say there was a theoretical super league that's formed of the most biggest elitist brands, right? Like we're going to form this together. We're going to create a ratings juggernaut for our TV partners. We're going to break away football only, and then we're going to have this new league. Basically, you can slice and dice this thing. So you have the top 25 brands here, where it basically tells you who would be in that league.
According to Florida State.
According to Florida State.
Yeah.
And then the cutoff point of schools like Virginia Tech and Texas A&M, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisville, Minnesota, and on down. And the lowest rating drivers are SMU and Vanderbilt on this list and stuff that Florida State's compiled. So I think it's remarkable that I put this out again because it really gives you an idea. If there's ever going to be a cutoff mark, it's going to be on something like this. Because a football super league, if it's formed and stuff, the media partners are going to have a say in who gets in and who gets paid. And this is basically eliminate all the milkers from all this analysis, and you take your top 25 brands, maybe your top 30 brands. So if you had the top 30 brands, then you cut it off at Louisville. Maybe you factor in some Big 12 teams there to add in and everything, but you can kind of see here who's going to get left out. And so that's pretty amazing to see for me and stuff. And it's pretty amazing that Florida State's like going down this path and beating this horn again on their ratings performance, which has been excellent.
Mo, and I'm going to read more of the tweet unless you want to add anything to what you just said.
I'll wait till you finish the tweet.
Yeah, let me read through the rest of the thread just so everybody can tell what the rest of the conversation was. So later in the same thread, Alford on the 2024 football season, we should be better. He says the effort hasn't changed during practices. Alford says there's already been plenty of interest in the assistant openings. They know this program's going to be back. And a couple more. Alford shares an interesting thought. Hasn't considered when the house settlement provides more of a level playing field with player compensation, facilities will be something that matters more. He also said culture, but I hadn't thought about the facilities in that way. And last one is I had kind of assumed facilities wouldn't matter much if players are getting paid. He presented a counter argument. So I guess at the end of the day, what Michael Alford's saying here is Florida State's in good hands. Of course, that's what he's going to say. And they're all set up once they can break the gore and get out of the ACC. They're in a good position to land on their feet in the Big Ten or the SEC moment.
For starters, I think the data is cherry picked a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
A
It's
little
only
bit.
during the CFP era
Yeah.
when Florida State has been good historically.
Yeah.
And Florida has been down, and Miami's been down during that period.
Right.
So saying I'm the king of Florida for a 10-year period, fantastic.
Right.
The other thing I want to point out in that chart, 17 teams, guys. 17 out of the top 20 are big, SEC, or independent. The other slide.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Yeah. Add Notre Dame in, right?
Notre Dame's independent, right? So you've got Florida State, Clemson, Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking about a super league. You can exist in a super league without Florida State. It can happen.
Well, you can exist in that, but Florida
Yeah.
State belongs in the Super League based
Right.
on that. Clearly.
Yeah,
Like how,
they belong.
Really?
They
Yeah,
belong.
oh gosh, yeah, they belong. They're one of the biggest drivers. How do they not belong in the Super
Them and
League?
Clemson both deserve
For
a spot.
100%.
Yeah.
They have to be able to get out of the ACC free of charge.
Right. And that's
Nobody's going to cover the freight for them to leave.
Right. You're
But,
right.
You know, and I want to point out that again, if you had a league comprised of only the best teams, somebody's going to have to lose. There are going to be years where Ohio State's a bad team or Penn State's a bad team. You need to have some people at the bottom who can take those losses for you. I mean, it's why the NFL, you rarely see any repeat success in the NFL.
Right.
Outside of every few, you know, we get switch ups. One year the Rams are winning the West. The next year the Seahawks win it. The next year the Cardinals win it.
Parity is real in football because of
Right, but
the
in
salary
college-
cap and other things.
And it can happen in college football. Take a look at Indiana. I mean,
Sure.
they've come up this year. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have some teams that lose in there. And people, if you look on there, Wisconsin's on that list, guys, and Wisconsin hasn't been great since Barry Alvarez. But they're still on that list. So I think you have to understand that you cannot get a super league comprised of only the top 25 brands.
No, you can't.
Mm.
This is
Why
my
can't
point.
you? Just because you're going to have some losses? Is that like your argument?
Yeah,
Why don't you
why
play
would-
Mercer every other game like the SEC does if you want some wins?
You can play conference games against opponents like Wisconsin who still draw ratings.
Like, aren't the viewers
yeah, I
like smart
don't
enough
think-
to realize that you'd be in a different league? That like you would have probably your own rating system and not just be ranked like in a normal AP because you'd break away. I mean, like that's just not reality. I think that it would be a mini NFL. I think that it absolutely be a mini NFL. I think you get huge ratings. It's not just because you're beating up on Mercer and you're making a top 25 that you're actually have a big brand. It's because people pay attention to you. They're not going to fall off because you've lost 2 games in a Super League format.
Well,
People watch
if
the
they,
NFL all
wouldn't,
the
if
time.
they wouldn't have fallen off, then Florida State would not have cherry picked that data from when they were bad.
Florida State's viewership's been fantastic this year, guys. Like Florida State just played Notre Dame with a 1 win, and they just drew probably 3 or 4 million views. Like Florida
Notre
State's
Dame-
fine.
Notre Dame drew those views. Come on, Philip.
But like you look all year long, and Florida State's tops in the ACC again, even with this garbage. Like it's not necessarily all about wins; it's about brand.
Yes, but I think if they legitimately pulled from that data point the times when they were most successful to showcase their ratings. If you go back 10 years prior to that, I think that number is going to be much lower.
So this is how I think this is going to shake down. I still think the ACC's in real trouble to survival. They have to one convince Notre Dame to stick around and join a conference with Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, whoever, and cut loose the milkers. And we don't have to name them, but everybody knows those schools. They're not adding to the pie; they're only taking from it. This idea that they're going to reconstitute in a 10-team league. These other ideas that it may happen, that those things actually may happen. The reverse could also happen too, though. You have a super league that is 48 teams to 60, and it comprises the top 60 brands in all of college football. And I would argue then you'd be able to cover and make quite a bit of money at that too. What we're going to find out is what is the staying power for the ACC. Bubba Cunningham, we're going to get to that in just a second. The AD at North Carolina, and how could they execute it? How do they make it work so that they get rid of schools with a pat on their head, make them feel good about themselves, but you're not going to bring them along into this new club? Lots of open questions. One that's been around a long time, but the how it would be put together has always been different. Is this idea that you take the best of the Big 12, which is basically they would take the entire Big 12, and then you bring in what's left of the ACC that is non-milkers from the ACC once you lose Florida State, Clemson, and whoever else gets out. So we're talking about Louisville. We're talking about Pitt. Those coming over directly to the Big 12. You constitute a 20 to 2014 league. Now you're done. Now you have, let's do the math. Everybody is at either 20 or 24. So you go 40 teams plus another 24. That gets you to 64 teams. The Big 12 sharing more with more teams. The Big 10 and the SEC only have a few more teams each. And but there's a whole big rainbow or pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All right, really quick. I need to take this banner off here. Hang on one second. So let's do a quick reset. We're a little over an hour into the show. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Really love those subscriptions. Also, follow us all on Twitter. Our name, Twitter's right there. You can see them. We appreciate everybody that interacts with us on Twitter and on YouTube. We do pay attention to that stuff. Consider becoming a paying member of the Mafia family. And last but not least, turn on those notifications and be a part of it. Become part of the biosphere. It's harder for us to grow during the season. Our bailiwick is usually Realignment and then overall college football news. So now it's slowing down, and we expect those membership numbers to begin climbing again. So we appreciate everybody being here and going through that with us. Yeah, all right, let's get to this next thing because I wanted to get to a few minutes of news and notes. So this is that Project Rudy College Sports Football League. And we already talked about it at the top of the show where these got together really without any Big Ten or SEC support. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because a major backer for what this is, it happens to be North Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham. Here's a quote from him. "It's disappointing they're poo-pooing it," said North Carolina AD Bubba Cunningham, listed as a CSFL ambassador. "Even if you attend the meeting and participated and decided it wasn't for you, that would be at least to me a better thing to do. But just to dismiss it out of hand is frustrating, and I would say it's embarrassing that you would come out so publicly, do this sort of PR campaign trying to pressure people from these other conferences to attend, and then they basically thumb their nose at you. At the end of the day, Bubba Cunningham's big name. We know Greg, peek around the corner, Greg Flugar, Flug Empire, friend of the show. He's talked about on his show, I think, 2 or 3 times this week. If Greg's talking about it, it's got legs. There's definitely people spending time on it. But I look at it, and the fact that we're hearing about it tells me it's not a real thing. They're trying to use PR to pressure people to do things, and there's no leverage anybody else has against the Big Ten and the SEC. My opinion is these are great ideas, but the chance they get together and actually do anything, especially in the next 6 months, I would be stunned unless Notre Dame changes its mind on independence or the ACC blows up in the next 6 months. All right, you read the article. You know what we're talking about. I've talked about it many, many times before. What do you think about all of it?
I think the Super League idea with 68, 72,
right?
However, Project Rudy, the weird name that's like the college football Super League idea that everyone kind of makes fun of. I think that those are going to fail completely. And it's funny because I can tout Project Rudy and everything, and I like to kind of poke the bear on that and everything, but it doesn't make any sense. There's just too many mouths to feed. If I'm really honest about it, you can use the same amount of money and split it a lot less ways because the lower end teams and stuff are not bringing their share at all.
Yeah.
They're like guys, and here's the truth of the matter is the Utah Utes, they're not one of the elite brands too. You could put Utah into a bucket too and say the top 30 brands, Utah's probably not getting in.
Yeah.
And so my team is part of that too. But if you're going to format a Super League, it's going to be of the best to get more money, to actually make it worthwhile for your biggest brands to pull away. It's not going to be 70 teams. It's not going to be 80 teams. It's not going to be 100. It's going to be 30 to 40 teams. That's it. And you're going to have it pretty much the same amount of money because they drive all the ratings anyway, as you would with 80 teams, and you're splitting it 40 ways rather than 80 ways. That's the only way a Super League works because that's the only way to pry schools away from their employer, the conference that, schools are very married to, obviously, as we know. So how are you going to entice a school like Texas A&M? You give them a bundle of money, you double their payout, and then try to pull football away from the SEC. That's the only way to make it work. And so that's how a Super League idea would have to format. And now we're going back to the ratings drivers, the Florida State numbers, our numbers, different numbers. Who are the top 40 brands viewership wise? That's going to matter. That's going to tell you a lot. And at the end of the day, it's probably going to shake out like that. If a real Super League happens, it's going to be the Premier League of the biggest ratings drivers.
I would love a Premier League with relegation and promotion. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. Moen.
Listen, I don't need to sit through a timeshare presentation to know I don't want a timeshare in Maui. I'm sorry that Bubba Cunningham feels that way, but again, look at the numbers. If we're going to use Florida State's numbers, 17 of those schools are Big Ten, SEC, and independent. If Notre Dame flips to Big Ten, which they could potentially do, that's, 17 schools of the top 20 already exist in the Big Ten and SEC conferences. Why would those conferences say, let's give up our traditions, our autonomy, everything we've got? You think that Ohio State, I know you guys think, well, money's the only thing. Ohio State's not going to leave behind Purdue. Yeah. They're just not. I know it's hard to understand for people who aren't in the Big Ten Conference, especially with the way realignment has gone the last 3 years, but there is sort of a brotherhood here. I think that brotherhood exists in the SEC as well, where Ohio State does want to play Purdue every year or every few years.
Right.
They do want to play because these are teams that go back 100+ years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I get that, maybe the perspective's different because the Pac-12 fell apart and that they in USC jumped for the money and everything, and the brotherhood of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten was stabbed in the back and everything. So screw all that crap. It's all about money. That's how I see it. That's based on my experience. That's exactly what's happened to my school, at least. And so why wouldn't it happen to somebody else's school? If the Big Ten's not the biggest pot of money, then they can get screwed too. Someone's going to stab in the back. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what happened to the Pac-12. So yeah, you're right about that. But that's why a Premier League, if it forms, is going to be attractive too.
I would love a Premier League. I think it'd be awesome. I still think 3 conferences of 20 schools is the best breakdown, but I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell. Eventually, everything will sort out. Becky, go Huskies. $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Becky. Did you see the World of Warcraft field? I did. I did see that. Hey, look, they got to come up with money. They need to come up with $20 million if they're going to provide the maximum the school can give to players. They're going to have to come up with $20 million plus facilities upgrades, plus now paying and supporting players scholarships and everything else. You're talking about the 20 million isn't 20 million. I bet you the 20 million ends up being closer to 40 or 50 million each year that schools would have to come up with to basically subsidize at 100% their programs. The number is going to be shocking. I think there's going to be a lot of sticker shock, and teams that aren't all in, teams that aren't willing to make the commitment, they're going to weed themselves out. It doesn't have to be college realignment that's going to weed themselves out. They're not going to be able to write the checks to stay and participate. You guys want to say anything about it?
I haven't seen what that is, the World of Warcraft field.
World of Warcraft, they changed, W. So it's W for Washington, World of Warcraft. Anyway, they've done it. They've dressed up the entrances and exits and did some stuff on the field. It's all about naming rights for a game, I guess. And evidently they paid a lot of money for it too. So whatever. I don't have any problem with naming rights at all. Becky Goski's again $1.99. Stanford's top 25 per that list, guys. You know what? I'm just going to say it out loud. Those look very much like Tony Altimore numbers to me. In my opinion, that's where those numbers came from. So take them for the grain of salt, that you do or don't want to do. But I look, he was trying to get something to his boosters, right? He was trying to say, hey, look, this is why we're in a good position, even though we're potentially losing this lawsuit. Nothing? You guys don't have anything else?
I apologize. I thought you were going to continue, Bummer.
No, it was a long pause.
Stanford, top 25. If Notre Dame comes to the Big Ten, they can have a +1 with them.
Yep, that's true.
They can bring Stanford.
And you get to 20.
You hit 20, you stop.
I can see that.
The SEC could probably, if for some reason Florida State and Clemson can get out of that entire deal, and the SEC takes them, that leaves one team inside the top 20, guys. It's not a Big Ten SEC brand.
Yes.
You essentially have a super league if you have some kind of alliance between those two conferences.
Okay.
Like you've got the super brands, but not a super league. Right? That's what I'm saying. Like you understand that, like you can't have a super league when you've got brands that aren't super brands. Like they're not, you've got plenty of non-top 20 drivers in the leagues. Like until you get rid of that, then you're not a super league. That's the problem.
The NFL's not a super league then.
The NFL is a super league.
They have
brands right there. It's not like NFL that's not playing.
They have salary caps. They all have
there's teams that are perennial bottom dwellers in the NFL.
But they all spend the same amount of money.
Right. So but are we going to consider the NFL a super league, even though they have the Cleveland Browns in there?
Well, of course you could call it a super league, but who are they above? Who are they super to? Nobody can compete with them, so it's redundant.
Right, but they have lower tier brands. They do have lower tier brands. Not all brands are the same value in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys are worth more than the Carolina Panthers.
That goes deeper, though, than just saying they spend money differently than others. Some of these teams have only been around 30 years. Others have been around over 100 years. So, of course, there's always going to be that bias to the ones that have more value. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, from that standpoint, you're right. Okay, we're going to go directly to Q&A. So if you're new to the channel, haven't been here before, I want to encourage everybody to leave your comments and questions in the comment section. We'll try to keep flagging those. We've got about 20 minutes. We're going to go another 20 minutes. If you want your comment to be read for sure, it'll have to be a super chat going forward. Other than that, we're going to start flagging. We already have 70 in our flagged. So the chances we get to any new comments is probably pretty low. But I will say this, you never know. You might win the lottery, and I just happened to grab it. But super chats will get you there anyway. Let's see here. Forgot to turn this thing off. All right, there we go. Okay, first note is, wait, I just hit that. My bad. Why didn't it? I just turned it off. That was weird. Okay, we're going to start at the bottom and work our way back because that's what everybody can remember. Town Hawk says, Moen, NFL also has bad owners than leadership, I would put in there too. Difference in bad college teams eventually can their administrators, whereas owners just cash the check regardless.
Sure, but the same holds true. They get paid the same amount of money.
Right.
There are brands that are perennial bottom dwellers and just don't make as much money as other brands. And trust me, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. We've got the worst owner in pro football. So
Tony Lawson says the Green Bay Packers aren't super.
They're pretty super.
They got more Super Bowl rings than my Bengals. So.
If there's a blue blood, Green Bay is near the top of that list, if not the number one, for sure. The Patriots, Packers, and 49ers, I think, would be my
and the
list.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Chiefs.
Yeah. I'm just teasing you, Ute. Clint Moses says mom and pop's owners in NFL only care about staying in the black. Well, that's true.
It's true.
Just
Mike Brown goes around the stadium on Monday looking for drop change.
It's true.
What?
Yeah, they have had the worst ownership group for 50 years or more.
Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, he goes around the stadium on Monday to see if anybody dropped any change. All he cares about
it feels like you're serious about this.
Black Rain checking in says the Big 12 needs to be open to new rivalries, not just the ones in the past. I don't think anybody did. We say they're not open to new rivalries. I mean, of course,
say it, but Pitt is the team that's just an absolute no-brainer. Bring the backyard brawl in, belongs in the Big 12.
Okay. Keep chopping. The Big and SEC are already doing their own thing. People just aren't seeing it. I think they're seeing it. I think they just hope it goes away if they quit looking at it. I think that's where we're at with that. Antoine Codes checking in. Another member of the Mafia family. Thank you so much for that, Antoine. I personally like problems that forces you into a solution. The Big 12 and ACC should not be asking the Big and the SEC for permission. They gave us some scraps. Now we need to turn it into a meal. We've sort of beat that up a little bit. Ute, do you want to add any more to what we've said?
What can Big 12 and ACC do? Win in the playoff.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Yep. By the way, we've talked to professionals, people who do this for a living, and they say winning playoff games and getting to the playoff, especially getting two teams in the first year for the Big 12, would be ideal if they could do that. But once you're there, you got to win some games.
Got to win.
Got to win some games. The Big Lubbock checking in. Texas Tech in the house. Why can't the ACC, Big East, Big 12, AAC, and PAC form their own athletic division and form their own basketball tournament and leave out the Big and the SEC? You'd be cutting off your nose to spite your face. Unless you want to be relegated to permanent subservient status, you would never do that, Big Lubbock, because the minute you do, they'll be fine to let you go. A lot of the reason why it still even stays together now is social pressure. You have 36 of the top brands right now between those two leagues. Is that right? 18 plus 16, 34, I guess. If you cut yourself off, they'll let you go. They'll just let you go and say, okay, see, they didn't want to be here anyway. And they'll just do their own thing. Right now, there's social pressure to keep those people around, especially in Congress.
You nailed it.
I like when I do that. Moen, do you want to add any to that?
Yeah, as long as you leave access to the playoff
Yes.
I think the SEC and Big Ten will be fine. They're not going to face too much pressure.
We want 16 teams, 4-4, 2-2, 1-3. That's what we want.
We want 14 teams, 4-4, 2-2,
No.
2.
No. Oh, yeah. Good luck getting that. I don't know that they would do that. I'd take it. Right now, I would take that. I don't know if they're 14 is fine, but I don't think they're going to give the Big 12 and SEC 2 at 14. I don't know. What do you think?
I think they will. I think
okay, well, that'd be great. I would love it.
So 4-4, 2-2,
2-2.
Then what do we have? 2-2.
Yep.
And the 2-2 goes
to
last.
2 would be general, and 1 would go for the G5, and 1 would go for, I guess, another. No, that's not right. Let's work that backwards. 4-4, 2-2 gets you to 12.
12.
That only leaves 2 spots, not 4.
Yeah, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think yes.
Yeah, there's a second set of 2s there, though.
I would love it.
Yeah, at 14, 4-4, 2-2. I feel like this is the scene in Clue where they're arguing over how many guns are.
I love it. Let's do it.
Gun.
I want it.
Yeah, you've got 2 for at-large and G5 access.
Okay. Let's see here. FF18 Buffs. Good to have you in the house, and thanks for being a member as long as you have. Let's give him a sounder, Moen.
Let's see, for a Buffalo.
And then follow it up with a sounder for Becky. Oh, the more you know.
Whoa, Nelly!
There we go. You got it. You worked it out. You found the right one. I love it. Thank you, Moen, for doing that extra work. I think he intentionally did not add the Big 12 because then Colorado is above Florida State, and the reality that Prime is just fine where he is. I don't know. I think Florida State might be his destination. But you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Prime at Florida State could work. It could work.
Prime anywhere will work.
Yes.
He's got a magnetic personality. He's got charisma.
Oh, yeah.
People tune it. People love to watch him, and people love to hate him. People will tune in for that.
Absolutely right. 100% agree. Being a Seminole himself, boy, with the bling and everything else, it might break college football if he goes to Florida State.
Check it out, guys. So just for a little context and how important Prime is, in 2021, the Colorado Buffaloes were averaging 370,000 viewers per game. 2022, 350,000 viewers per game. That was regular place.
Wow.
In the 300,000s. In 2023, when Prime came, it was 4.5 million views per game.
Oh, my hell.
350, 370 compared
broken.
to 4.5 million. So
Wow.
Prime is an absolute mammoth ratings driver. So Buffs keep him at all costs. A Big 12 needs to keep him at all costs too.
Yeah, I mean he says all the right things about sticking around. And maybe it's not this year. Norvell, back-to-back years, polar opposites. Maybe they give him one more year. But if he doesn't get better than 8-4, 9-3, yeah, I think Deion might be on speed dial.
Man, seriously though, if Deion went to Florida State, they'd be the number 1 ratings driver over Ohio State.
Right.
For a couple years at least. They really would.
That would
based on his magnetic personality, that would be insane.
Break the internet. All right, so we got some memberships, Moen. I'm going to turn you loose.
Justin R. gifting the 5 guys with a side of fries. KS Bear Fan, Ag Biochemist, Mark Rutger, Dustin Flaneur, ALC. You were all gifted memberships by the University of South Florida Bulls. Justin R.
Justin R.
Make sure if you're in the chat, you thank Justin. If you're watching on demand, go ahead and leave a comment thanking Justin. That gives you access to all the members-only videos here at the College Football Mafia, preferred membership status when we take questions and Q&A, and access to all the custom emotes. Thank you, Justin R. And if you did receive one of those gifted memberships, consider paying it forward.
We believe in karma around here. So you get something for free, pay it forward for somebody else. Thank you so much, Justin. It's been a minute since we've had a five spot come through the door, so we thank you very much for that.
Let's hold on. He's got to get his sounder.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Give him a sound.
There we go. Excellent. I love it.
Lubes.
Thank you so much, Justin. USF's one of those schools hanging on the outside, trying to do anything they can to get into a power conference. They don't want to get left behind. I mean, it's a feeding frenzy trying to last. Antoine Codes, member for 10 months. That is awesome, Antoine Codes. Thank you so much. We better have money for playoff rosters. We need money.
Yeah, so ASU needs
leads. Oh, that is brilliant, sir.
ASU, the NIL funding arm needs to improve, it looks like.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, you keep giving them winning seasons, they'll show up. They got a lot of population right there. I mean,
yeah.
ASU's decision to join the Big 12 might be the best decision they've made since joining the Pac-12 in 1978.
Could be.
It could set the program on an entirely different keel. And they fired their old AD, which is always good too. Stephen Vitt, Ohio, is that Bobcats?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay,
Athens
look at
Bob.
that. I know some stuff.
They're in Athens.
Stephen Vitt says any G5 team that plays well will get some views. You can have a storied power conference school, but if your team is terrible, you'll get low views. That seems like common sense to me. Do you want to say anything about the data involved in that?
So what drives views? It's your brand, number one. Rankings between like matchup, either your ranking as a brand and your opponents, storylines, and rivalries. Like, so a rivalry can offset a lot of that because of the intrigue of the storyline. But those are the things that drive ratings. So yes, if you win more and you're ranked, you're going to get better ratings. But like, it's all relative to really how strong your brand is too, because there's an amplifier on what you can get. So if you've got a big brand, you've been bad for a while, and you get ranked, all of a sudden it just magnifies on itself. So there is an amplifier there too, depending on how big your brand is. So winning is important, of course, but brand is massive.
Very good. Great comment. Thank you, Stephen. Shonsky, another valuable member. We got all these members. I love seeing you guys. By the way, we've had like almost 80 people watching consistently since the show began. That's awesome. Those are great numbers, everybody. And we give you the kudos for doing that. The people you're telling about the show, the way you're talking about the show and forwarding them on Twitter and other social media, we're very grateful for that. Thank you for that. You guys have just as much effort involved as we do. Shonsky says the high elevation gives BYU a win. BYU comes from behind and wins in the second half of the game. They're sort of going synonymous for that, giving BYU their 10th win of this season. The only question I would have here is, I thought, what's the elevation in Phoenix? They're not like at C
or in Lawrence, KU or ASU.
Oh, he was talking about, I'm sorry, I said the wrong one. In Kansas, my bad. I was thinking of ASU. I'm sorry.
Not high.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of Arizona State in my head. I was thinking Arizona State.
Have you guys ever drove through Kansas or Nebraska?
I drove through 1 month. Yes, I did.
I drove there for 3 hours, but it felt like a month.
Yeah, it is. It is a month. FF18 Buffs. Colorado has trouble with backup QBs historically. Actually, a lot of teams do, but never had to play the backup to the backup to the backup to the backup. Good luck tomorrow morning. And it's an early kick, 10 a.m. Mountain Time.
Everybody can watch Luke Batari walk on quarterback on Big Noon, baby. On Big Noon with the Utes. The most ironic thing of all is Luke Batari's played one football game, started that in his life in college football, and that was the Buffs. Last year on the Pac-12 network, nobody watched it. Shedeur Sanders didn't play. Utah squeaked it out, and this is a different game, different team. I think
Travis Hunter was out, and Shedeur was out for that.
Travis Hunter played, but Shedeur.
Oh, I thought he was hurt by that time.
He was hurt, but he came back that game.
Oh,
he scored 2 touchdowns, I think. So
okay.
But Shedeur was out, in Colorado wasn't good. So this is a completely different mechanism here. But the same quarterback, yeah.
Darth Ducky says Bomber, Wild Ute, Moen are heretics and scallywags. Please, somebody connect the dots for me. What is that from?
Well, he thinks we're heretics and scallywags.
I know,
think that's
but is
just
it a
from his
reference to
opinion.
something?
I think it's just his. It's like your opinion, man.
Oh, okay.
But I will say that's some of the nicer things we've been called. Thank you.
That's
sure.
true. That's absolutely true. Thank
We
you,
have been
Darth.
called the most annoying people on YouTube before. I remember that one. So that was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Man, those are badges of courage, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Chris Jernigan. Thanks for being here, Chris. Consider becoming a member of the Mafia family while you're here. Hit that $sign and hit that membership and join us. Chris Jernigan, dumbest thing to say that injuries don't matter, maybe one or two depending on your depth and the position. Isn't FSU decimated by injuries? Without logic, they should be in contention. So how many games have you won or lost based on your injury report?
It depends on if the quarterback is injured or not.
I think there's a lot of caveats.
If your quarterback's hurt, you're in trouble. If your starting stud quarterback's hurt. Florida State, that hasn't been the case, though. They had DJU this year, and he just played poor. And Florida State underperformed. So it's a different story with every school, but every school has to go through it sooner or later, maybe not in the same year. It's part of the game.
DJU was terrible for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to get your team down.
They missed on so much in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So many of those guys came in with high prospects and just have not fulfilled it.
Yeah. Good point, though. We understand what you're saying there, Chris.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here and watching. Glenn Lumen checking in from the Philippines. Good morning, 3. Thanks for being here, Glenn. Sorry I'm getting to this late, but BYU again tomorrow. Man, Vampire Cougs, let's go.
Oh, what time do those BYU games play for Glenn in the Philippines? Like they've got to be early morning games, right?
Yeah, they're 15 hours, I think he said.
Okay.
So it's the next day plus.
Yeah,
3.
it's like 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Fantastic.
What time is it now? Yeah, so 6, so it's like 9:30 in the morning, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, Rock Chalk 94, another valuable member of the Mafia family for a very long time. Thank you, Rock Chalk. I'll give you a clap for that. I've heard UNC and UVA, Big Ten, and Louisville, Miami, FSU, Clemson, Pitt, Georgia Tech, North Carolina State, Virginia Tech to the Big 12. Private equity to Big 12 private equity, ACC Gore means no leverage. Can you break that down for me? I think I got lost.
Sawyer's saying right here that he's heard that UNC and Virginia, right, to the Big Ten.
Okay.
Big Ten wants Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And then UNC. Those are the two that the Big Ten would take in a heartbeat. Stanford's in play too. Those are the ones that have linkage to the Big Ten Conference. The SEC wants UNC and possibly Virginia. That's all we know from the SEC, from the last smoke that we've heard in the realignment season. And the Big 12 will take the biggest brands it can get. The ACC just wants to survive, and the ACC currently is in a state where there might be some compression, shrinking in the ACC, where the top brands led by UNC. Go check out Greg Flugar's Monday or Tuesday show. Talked about this. There's shrinking of UNC maybe in 10 schools overall to get more media payouts and basically dissolve the ACC and form its own new conference. So that's in play too. There's a lot of things in play. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Still, the TV contract situation for the ACC hasn't been extended, which is in February. So there's going to be another realignment driver. There's a ton going on. But if you're talking about the Big Ten, Notre Dame is it, and UNC is it.
There are some big names in these negotiations, names people would recognize, both on administrators, media, coaches. A lot of people are being involved in this right now. At the end of the day, if the Pac-12 had done what the ACC is talking about doing, and they would have gotten rid of the schools they could have gotten rid of and then brought in the schools they wanted, there's a lot of options that are on the table, especially private equity is going to front it for you. So we'll have to see. But thanks. Appreciate it, Rock Chalk. I love saying Rock Chalk 94. I just love saying that. To Town Hawk says, Jed Fish may have inadvertently tanked 2 teams this year. Arizona will be at home, and Washington may not make a bowl game either. Washington has been struggling. It's true. Arizona, boy, oh boy.
They're going to have some changes if they lose more games at Arizona. That is coming. They're going to have some players leave after this season, coaching change possibly. So the Wildcats struggled this year too.
Let me ask a question to both of you. For these schools that have had this down season, of all the ones that we've seen across the country, and there's been a bunch of them, what are the ones that stand out at you that these might not be transitional seasons? These might be paradigm establishing traditions, both on the plus and the downside, for schools that might be down for a while now. I'll give you mine. On the minus side, I would say Oregon State. Washington State's played well, but they're not undefeated or anything. And Arizona. On the plus side, I would say BYU. I think they're back to stay, especially with what they're spending with NIL. And I also think Indiana is not going to be a flash in the pan unless that coach leaves. If Cignetti stays, I think he could build something there that could set a precedent for years to come. Moen, I'll ask you, who are your down and ups? Not all of them that are up and down. Like I didn't say Florida State, but the ones that would be down and might be down for years, and the ones that are up, they might be up for years.
I hate to do it to you, but from what I've seen of Utah this year, I think it's going to be more than just a transitional season.
Yeah,
I think Whittingham, he's pretty much already announced he's going to retire within the next 5 years.
Yes.
I think that needs to be this season. I do. I think you want to get that page turned, get that new coach in there, let him start doing his recruiting, let him start building the program in his own image. I don't think you guys can do another year with Cam Rising. I don't. I mean, if Isaac Wilson was a huge prospect for you and he's leaving, that's going to hurt. So I think out of all of them, Utah is the one I would be the most concerned about, especially when BYU is having an undefeated season. You guys go after a lot of the same recruits. So
yeah. Flip the script a little bit. So is there a team that you think, or a couple teams, whatever, that you think are now that they're up, they're going to continue to go up?
Indiana, good point. Curt Cignetti said one of the reasons he signed at Indiana was the record-setting media deal. Indiana's supposedly got a raise in the works for him as well as new facilities.
Right.
So I think you're right there. I think Cignetti will stick around. Clemson might be another one where I might have some concerns. But
I agree with you. I forgot about Clemson.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No other teams up? Okay. Ute.
Arizona, Oregon State, Washington State, those two for obvious reasons. But
right.
When Arizona lost Jed Fish, it was killer. This Brett Brennan thing hasn't worked out. The problem at Arizona is there's just not a lot of funding and support for the football team. Right. So I've got big concerns there. I understand the Utah point, but Utah actually has pretty good NIL funding. And they've got a pretty strong administration. So I think that it can turn around quick in a transfer portal era, in a non-development era. So I'm not ready to put the stake in the Utes quite yet based on the funding arm that they can bring in players. I don't know about Clemson's funding arm. I'm very bullish on Florida State, though. Florida State will be back, guys. Florida State had a horrible year. Get new transfers in, get a new quarterback, get a new regime in. You can flip it in a year. They did it before. It can go either way on you in this transfer portal NIL era. You can have a great team one year. The next year you can suck, or else vice versa. Like, it changes so fast. As long as you've got a quarterback, you're set. And so I think that as long as you've got a administration that supports football and NIL funding, that you're going to be fine. But if you don't have those two, you're in big trouble. And so you can look around. I don't know about Indiana's NIL funding. Signetti's had a great year this year, but I wouldn't bank a lot on Indiana football historically and stuff. Like, he's probably going to take another job, like, just given the fact that he's had such a strong resume so far, he's probably going to take an SEG. Maybe he takes the Bama job. You never know what he's going to get next. I'm not going to bank a lot of money on Indiana football. I'm going to go to the historical powers that have had a lot of football success and see where their funding arm is, because that's really all that matters now. What's your salary cap? And then you can change your team year in, year out. It's not player development anymore, guys. It's really flipping a roster. Look what Colorado did. It changed from a 2-win, 1-win season to now they're a Big 12 playoff contender. This is the world we live in. So it's all about your NIL pockets and your administration to me. And Arizona's in trouble.
Yeah, and I would say all 4 of the schools that went to the Big 12 2 years ago, next year finally get their full their full payout. So they're going to be roughly $32 million, where this last year they were $18 million. You're doubling essentially your additional media money, and in doing that, those schools have a huge upside still. Some people think, well, they've been in the league for 2 years, that's enough. No, they don't get their full money till next year. So these are all things. Money, you just said it, money can change a lot of things. And it's absolutely true. You can flip a roster. I would say you can flip a roster if you have a good foundation with your team. You have to have a bunch of character leaders, and you can't just bring in complete strangers with no support. So,
i.e. Florida State. That's exactly Florida State.
They tried to buy. That's true.
Yeah. And it'll work, though. The year before, they were undefeated. Like, it just is, you're playing like a risky game there. If you're going to flip a roster, and it might pay off, you might get to the playoff, or you might go 2 wins. It's risky.
Yeah. This is going to be our last comment, and then we're going to get out of here. So if you have any other comments you want to be put out, and now would be the time with Super Chats. Otherwise, we're going to do this last comment, and then we're going to do final comments going into the weekend. Lonnie Johansson, been a member for 10 months. Lonnie, thank you so much for your membership. We really, really appreciate it. Good evening from Kansas, and go BYU and the U of U. And go Big 12, which is what Ute and I are very much into. Go Big 12. Okay, Ute, final words. Anything you want to get out to the public before we take off?
I hope Mike Tyson beats the crap out of Jake Paul tonight. I don't know who's winning, fellas. We're going to go watch that after.
Yep.
Okay, hoping that the Utes play Colorado tight, and it's going to be a tough one. A big game for the Cougars in the Big 12, because if KU gets an upset here, we're in a world of hurt. This conference and everything. So it's the biggest game of the week. So watch that game and go Utes.
Okay. Moen.
It's an absolute farce to have a 60-year-old man fighting a 30-year-old YouTuber. It's not a boxing match. It is predetermined. You're not convincing me otherwise. It's a work, not a shoot. It's, the Counting Crows said they had a long December. I'm going ahead and going to give people a little sneak peek. It's going to be a hot and heavy January, folks.
Ooh, baby.
You will want to stay tuned.
All right. There's some tip of the hat. Look out, people. January is going to be hot. And we all know why that's going to be, because ESPN has to declare. They're either going to back up the ACC and give it the money it needs with a new extension, or the flip side is the world blows up without ESPN support. So I agree with Moen. January, February is going to be way exciting, and it's not just because of football games. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for everything you've done. We really appreciate you watching us tonight. This has been a fantastic show. Really appreciate your feedback. Make sure you follow us all on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us a comment or question. Turn on the notifications so you know when we're doing events with our members and just events with the show and notices that we do on Twitter. And then last but not least, consider becoming a member of the Mafia family. Is this the last one, Moen?
This will be the last super chat.
All right.
Justin R has already given us a 5-piece, and he dropped a $10 super chat. Thank you again, Justin R. We'll have to get a bull sound effect on the soundboard. Let's say BYU wins out, but loses the Big 12 title game to a 3-loss team. Would the committee keep out that 3-loss Big 12 champ from the CFP if Boise and Army win their leagues and finish 12-1? I don't think so. I'm going to say no on that.
I don't think so. Either.
I think Army would probably get left out in that scenario.
Yeah, a lot of dominoes are going to have to fall for Army to get up far enough. They only went up one spot over week after week, so their climb is too steep.
And I think that BYU would get in as an at-large, even if that were to happen. So the Big 12 wouldn't get boxed out of playoff.
Yeah.
But the nightmare scenario is if a BYU takes a loss and then loses in the championship game to a 3-loss team. That's the scary one, because you just don't know. It's not a guarantee.
Absolutely right. Justin, thank you so much for your super chats, for your memberships, and everything you've done. Everybody have a great night. Stay out of trouble. Watch some good games this weekend. Go Cougars. Down Jayhawks just for this 1 week. Everybody stay out of trouble. And Moen, I can't see your face, so I need to get this comment off the screen. There we go. All right. No, you keep
I took it off there and you put it back on there.
Okay. You leave it alone now. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Stay out of trouble and drive safe. See you later. Peace. And I hit the music thing wrong. Go.